I don't care if you think I'm racist. I just want you to think I'm thin. Like I...
Sarah Silverman might not care if people think she's racist, but the fact still exists that there are many people out there who do. Night after night, Silverman takes the stage and discusses cultural issues that are important and controversial to many of the facets of her avowed identity, an American, Jewish, heterosexual woman. Jewish. So let's take a second to talk about what stand-up comedy is. In Was That Supposed to Be Funny?, a rhetorical analysis of politics, problems, and contradiction in contemporary stand-up comedy, Nathan Andrew Wilson discusses comedy. He says, stand-up centers on the figure of the comic, and whenever a comic is facing an audience and trying to act or being perceived as acting humorously, whether by design or happenstance, stand-up may be said to occur. So throughout the world, comedians get up in front of thousands of people every day, and since they act as director, writer, and performer of their material, many comedians draw on their own personal cultural experience for their jokes. Some more innocently than others. It's a shameless plug there for me. While others take a little bit more of a controversial take on things. Sarah Silverman is one of these comedians.
Like my sister Laura is kind of like the family historian, you know, and she found out, we're Russian and Polish, you know, Jews. She found out that the village that our great-great-great-grandmother came from in Russia was raped and pillaged by, and I don't even know what pillaged means, but definitely raped by Mongolians. So I am part Mongolian rapist.
So that clip needs some unpacking. In order to do that properly, we need to define the concept of cultural history. So first, culture. In Reflect and Relate by Stephen McCornack, an introduction to interpersonal communication, he defines culture as the set of beliefs, attitudes, values, and practices shared by a large group of people. Then on the historical side of things, we look at Intercultural Communication, a Layered Approach by John G. Etzel. Etzel defines history as the retelling of past events that shape cultural identity and social relations and structures. So within this context, it could be said that Sarah Silverman is merely exploring some of the cultural history and some of the cultural trauma that had happened in her family years and years and years back. This is not to say that it stops it from being shocking to the audience.
You know, the Jews got all, you know, they didn't want, when that Jesus movie came out, the Jews didn't want people to see it because, you know, they felt, you know, everybody blames the Jews for killing Christ, and then the Jews try to pass it off on the Romans. You know, I'm one of the few people that believes it was the blacks.
What Sarah Silverman does is important because she takes contentious cultural subjects and she talks about them on stage. And in Excitable Speech, a book by Judith Butler, in the very first chapter on linguistic vulnerability, Judith Butler says, "We do things with language, produce effects with language, and we do things to language. But language is also the thing that we do. Language is a name for our doing, both what we do and that which we affect, the act and its consequences." Butler continues, "Consider for a moment how often such terms are subject to resignification. Such a redoubling of injurious speech takes place not only in rap music and in various forms of political parody and satire, but in the political and social critique of such speech." Then she says, "Those who seek to fix with certainty the link between certain speech acts and their injurious effects will surely lament the open temporality of the speech act. That no speech act has to perform injury as its effect means that no simple elaboration of speech acts will provide a standard by which those injuries of speech might be effectively adjudicated. Such a loosening of the link between act and injury, however, opens up the possibility for counter-speech, a kind of talking back that would be foreclosed by tightening of that link." So in that way, Sarah Silverman takes what is considered widely to be injurious speech, and through the comedy trope of irony, unfixes the meaning so that it can be looked at critically and reappropriated socially and culturally. Silverman's exact process of doing this gets a deeper look in Historiography of the World Part 1, The Jewish Body, Historical Crisis, and the Comedic Farce by Joshua Lewis Moss. Moss says, much of Silverman's humor is found in expressing racist comments in the form of a well-meaning epiphany. This invokes anxiety in her audience, since Silverman refuses to acknowledge her presumably aware, real self outside of the performance of her racist and ignorant character's utterances. The joke is not on Silverman, but in the rupturing of ethnic constructions in dialogue with the conventions of normativity and hegemony. Pushing boundaries like this is what some people say comedy's job is. To probe the boundaries of the sayable and to breach taboos, although some taboos are easier breached than others. It is taken as read, say others, that no harm is meant by these jokes, and that they are funny precisely because everyone present, performers and the audience, instinctively sense that this joke is a shocking thing.
I went out with a Mexican man. Do racist people go out with Mexican men? I don't think so. Look.
Sarah Silverman is a stand-up comedian who uses her own cultural identity and cultural background in her material so that her audiences can rethink their ideas and norms about race, ethnicity, and other cultures. Just because she is shocking does not mean that she's not also entertaining and also educational.